Hi there and welcome back. Today I'm going to show you how you can create timer loops in Clarion, and I'm going to show you how you can use our progress class to work with the timer loops. But first I'm going to show you how you can create source projects in Clarion 8 and also in Clarion 6, so you see how it's done in both environments. I use source projects quite a bit to test code and demonstrate simple things because it allows me to create projects with only the code that I need to demonstrate whatever it is that I need to demonstrate. A lot of my bug reports to Soft Velocity have been code projects where I isolate the problems as much as possible. But first, let us look at how to create source projects in Clarion 8. So let's start Clarion 6. Let's start with that. And we will start by creating a new source file. And we'll go to my development folder here, C6, and we'll say, just call it source, CLW, program, map, and code. This is pretty much the only thing that you need for a simple source project. Go to project and new hand-coded project. We go to the development folder here and here. And here we select in the main file, we select the source CLW that we just created and we compile. That's as simple as it can get. Now, in Clarion 8 this is a little bit different. You start by going to New, Solution, Project or Application, and here you select Win32exe. And you give it a name, we'll just call it Source, just like the other one. With the Auto Create Project subdirectory, it will create this subdirectory here from the folder that you selected, from this location here. I don't want it to do that, so I just uncheck this one here. And create, and here we have the source project complete with everything, and we can do build project, and it compiles. This is about as simple as you can get with those two environments to create a source project. Timer loops are very simple. Basically, instead of having a loop statement, you use an accept loop and a timer event that you use to process whatever you need to process. So let's create a very, very simple timer loop thing here in this. The first thing is we need some kind of a window. That's all we need. And in the code, the first thing we do is we open the window and then we hide it. Whoops, equal to true. This just makes it absolutely certain that this window will never show up. And we put in close window there. And here we put in accept and then we say if event equal to event timer, we do something. Or we should actually change this to case event of event timer and of event open window. That way we can, when it starts, we can do prop timer equals to 1. This will ensure that once the window opens, we will get a timer event firing. Now here, from old habit, the first thing I do when I get the timer event is that I stop the timer. In older versions of Clarion, I don't remember exactly which version, there was a problem with the timer events kind of piling up if you left the timer event running the timer running while you process the timer event. This could cause the process to be done, but the timer actually keep firing and firing and causing all kinds of weird problems. So we'll copy this and put into one here, and whoops, and in here we do our processing. Generally what I do is I have a flag that we can call lock done. It's a byte, and by default it's going to be false when we enter into this. And here we do something, and then if lock done is true, we break out of the accept loop, and we're done. The execution then falls into the close window, and we are done with this. Now I would think this should compile. Let's see if it does. So this is the simplest incarnation of a timer loop. What happens here is when the window opens, we start the timer. We set it to 1. That means it will execute 100 times every second. This is in 1/100ths of a second. So if we did this, it would fire once a second. So this starts the timer, and here we trap the timer event, we stop the timer, we do something, we check if we are done with whatever we are processing, and then we restart the timer. This particular program would never stop because there is nothing that sets the lock done to true. But this is the absolute minimum that you need for a timer loop. As you can see, it's about as simple as you can get it. And in an application, if you have an app file, you simply do put this in where you can use 0, which refers to the open or the target window that's, in a window procedure, that's going to be the window that's open. And this will start the timer, and then you have the timer event. And in an application, I think you need to actually add a timer to the window. And what I do then is I set the timer right after the window opens. Prop timer is equal to 1000 or something like that. Something that's never gonna hit until I get the open window event. You can also use a 0 in the prop timer to basically stop it right after it, or disable it right after the window is open. That's it. This is all you need to create a timer loop. Now this doesn't really do anything, so the next exercise here is to actually create a timer loop that does something. So now I'm going to add a little bit more meat to the bones here. I'm going to add a procedure, and I am going to be copying this code in from another area here, just so it doesn't take us much time. We're going to add this procedure here, and we're also going to add a file that we are going to be processing. This is just a very, very simple file. This one happens to contain 10,000 records, just a demo file that I'm going to use here. And the code statement here, I am going to call the test timer loops, and I'm going to remove this code here and copy in the code that I have in this other thing here. Now, instead of this window here, I'm going to replace that with a window that has a progress bar and stuff like that. We need the progress class, and we are going to add that. Let's add that before the map here. Include itutilityclass.inc. Okay, and I'm gonna copy in the procedure, the test timer loops procedure here, and the routines that it has. So now we have a different window. We have the PW window, which has a progress bar and stuff like that. So if we hit Control D, we're gonna bring up the window designer, and as you can see here, we have progress bar that is using progress 1, and we have this pause button here That's called pause button. That's all there is to it. And we open the file and we open the window. Since we are going to be watching the progress bar on the window, we're not going to hide it. So in the open window, we call a routine called start timer loop, and then we start the timer. So let's go to the start timer loop, and all it does is that it sets the file to process it, and it initializes the progress class. If you watch the previous progress class video, you will remember that this is how we initialize it, with the control name, the progress 1, and the records of the file. That's the number of records that we are going to process. Now, then we go into the timer event, and we stop the timer event, and we call a single timer event loop, and then we check for lock done, and if we hit it, we pop up a message, and then we break out of the timer loop. If it's not done, then we keep on processing the timer in the timer loop. Now, the single timer event loop is very simple. We set a number of iterations that we want to loop through each timer event. In this case, we have 100. That means that we are going to loop 100 times, or go through 100 records in the file. And we simply loop iteration times, and we call next on the file, and if it's an error code, we say lock done is true, and we break out of the loop. And we call ITP update to update the progress bar. Now let's see if this works. Lock done, PW, and do I have this duplicated here somewhere? I copy it in twice, yes. Oh, I copied it in the wrong place. Okay. And we don't need this here. Okay, so oops, we need to add the top speed file driver. Add file driver, top speed, and that should do it. Okay, it compiles. Whoops, we forgot something. We forgot to put in the project directives here. This is for the ABC because we are including the Icetips utilities. We need the ABC because it references some ABC classes, and we need the DLL mode and the link mode for the Icetips utilities classes. So now we should be able to link this and run it. And it's done. Now, as you can see, when you run this, it doesn't look very good. This is not manifested. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy a manifest file from, okay, I have one here, and I'm going to copy it into here, and I'm going to call it, what did we call this? Source. Yes. So we've got the manifest here, and the next thing we need to do is we need to add it here in the libraries object and whatever, and we should have manifest files here, and we add it there, and we rebuild, and we run. Now that looks a little bit better. Now, as you can see, this pause button doesn't do anything, doesn't do diddly squat. So we need to add some code to make that happen. We need to add here case field and oops, of pause button if event event accepted. And now what we need to do here is if PW whoops prop timer is equal to 1, then we stop it. If the timer is active, we stop it. If it's not active, we start it, yes. So let's see how that works. And we pause it, and we start it, and we pause it, and we start it, pause, start, pause, start. And as you can see, we can move things around. There is no problem stopping this, starting it, whatever. So let's add another button here. Let's go into the designer, move this button over here a little bit, and grab another button, drop it on here, and we'll call this one stop. And with this we will stop the process. And we'll call this one stop button. Copy that. And we go out into our code here of stop button. And then we do this one here. We stop the timer and we break. Possibly we might not break out of the loop, we might just stop, but probably we want to close the window when we hit this. So compile and run, and we say stop, and we're done, and it goes bye-bye. So this way you can create processes that work much better for your user. You can, like I said, you can pause it, you can stop it, you can restart it, and you can do all kinds of things with it. There is one more thing that I want to talk to you about when you're using timer loops or any kind of loops to update the screen. What happens is that if you're processing a lot of records, you're going to have problems with performance when you are updating the screen a lot. So if you were processing 1,000,000 records, you would have problems with the code that we're using here. So to help with that, I am going to show you my personal trick to help with that. What I do is I create two variables here, lock %, that's a long, and a counter variable. Let's just make that a long too. And then when I start the process, or when I initialize it, when I know how many records or whatever I'm going to look through, I set the % to equal to records F divided by 100. That gives me the number of records in 1%, meaning that I can use that to update the window every 1% of records that are being processed. And we set the lock counter, just for good measures, to 0. Now when I go in here and I'm updating or looping through the records, I update the counter plus equal 1, and then I check if it's equal to my lock % equal to 0. With this, I ask it if the modulus of the counter is equal to the %. So at this point, we need to, instead of the ITP update, we need to set the current value, to lock counter, and then we call show progress. And to make this a little bit more visible, let's put this thing to sleep for about 1 second. That'll give us a nice time to see what's going on here. Now let's see if this compiles, and let's run this puppy. Now you can see that it chops and it goes jump, 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 and it jumps from one percent to another. So by doing this, we can make the screen updates much more infrequent. In this case, it would update the screen 100 times instead of 10,000 times. And if you are, like I said, if you're processing 1 million records or something like that, that is going to add up really quickly in times that it saves to update the window. If you're updating multiple controls on a window, every time you look through this thing, it is going to get slower and slower the more controls you add to the window, the more controls that you update every time you go through it. So keep this in mind when you're processing through files, large files, for whatever purposes, that the less frequently you update the window, the faster the process is going to be. So this, I think, takes care of my discussion about timer loops.